Hello, and welcome to the We Get to Do This podcast. My name is Kaylee.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are your co-hosts.
In this show, we're going to dive into all things our lives, from our partnership to romance to entrepreneurship to growing our businesses together, our fitness journeys, and we're going to have a ton of different guests on that relate to what I just said in some way. We're hoping you enjoy the show, and if you do,
please feel free to follow us, leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and enjoy.
And if you don't like the show, tough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh boy, it's quite the look.
You like that?
Jacob's got the dad look going on today, as he says.
Surprise! Just kidding. Just kidding.
Don't think your parents would be very happy if that was the announcement.
But I do have a new sweatshirt that says, "This is about running. This is not about running." Coach Bennett's quote. And I had a client that was nice enough to give me it because they said that we've helped them kind of develop that mindset with their running, and how essentially most people take running too seriously.
Mm-hmm. And it's
That's
just
how I
a hobby.
look at it. And it's, but I think,
not just a hobby, but.
Well, right. I think that it's like, saying that this is about running, this is not about running. If you go look at like all of his tweets and Substacks and stuff, it's always a deeper message.
Yeah.
Right. It's like he's using running to get deeper in some sense. I think that's great. So, anyways, happy almost April. The season of heat, as they say.
By the time this comes out, it will be April.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But the exciting news is, if you've been following like last week, we're both feeling a lot better today.
Much better today.
My head feels so much clearer than last week.
Yeah, much better. Although I'm not fond of the snow that's coming down outside right now, but we get to go to Arizona in like a week as well, so we're gonna
# we get to do this.
We get to, yeah. And we got some potential exciting guests coming on soon, 2 or 3. So good things to look forward to.
We haven't actually said yes yet, but we're going to. They will. They'll be paying us to come on.
They'll be paying us to come on. Yeah. I wish. That'd be cool. I don't think anyone ever really does that. But so what are we talking about today, Bae?
Today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. And if you are like the majority of the people in probably the world, I would say, I feel like everyone's dealt with some kind of imposter syndrome at some point or another. And if we were to ask Google what imposter syndrome actually is, if you're like, what is that? It's a psychological phenomenon where individuals experience persistent feelings of inadequacy despite evidence of their competence and accomplishments. Some causes: perfectionism, comparison to others, cultural expectations, negative self-talk, and early childhood experiences. Interesting.
So you've dealt with this a lot?
I have dealt with this most days.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
It's that whole comparison thing. And I think that I feel like I've surrounded myself with very high achievers my entire life. We had 4 valedictorians in high school growing up. So naturally I had to be one of those people, and just like always felt like I was kind of competing towards that. And through college, same thing, wanted to be top of my class. And then same in nursing, wanted to be a really good nurse, always felt like I wasn't enough, and now has translated into being an acupuncturist, and that feeling of always feeling like I can be or should be doing more. Even though I'm always putting in probably like 250% towards my treatments and patients for the most part. But I was kind of, before we were starting this, I was kind of thinking about how it's even been in relationships in the past and feeling like I'm not like worthy enough or good enough for like a relationship. And you're kind of the first relationship that you've made me feel worthy enough for you and like very safe in our relationship and not like you're kind of like settling for me.
So what does that look like with acupuncture specifically? What do you mean by, because you said that it feels like you're never doing enough. What does that like have to do with imposter syndrome, I guess?
Just feeling like I'm not good enough and that others would be giving better treatments, better
Mm,
suggestions, doing better than I am. So it's then that feeling of why would people come see me when they could see this other expert?
right, right. And does that show up in other, so you said acupuncture, relationships?
And then even activities.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm better with activities. That's changing too. But I never felt like the best runner, and that was never really like kind of I never assumed that I would be good at it.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the one thing that didn't really stick out as imposter syndrome for me because I didn't think I even had a chance to be a good quote runner.
So how have you combated that? Going to work, client walks in, asks a question, you're like, I'm not adequate enough. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of tools that I've developed over the years, especially because I mean, I've been an acupuncturist I've been licensed for almost 3 years. So I mean, not that long. And when I've talked to other people about this before, and I've talked to you about this before, because we've talked about this a lot, reminding yourself that people are choosing to come see you for a reason, and reminding myself that they know that I haven't been in practice for 40, 50 years. It's not that hard to figure out that I graduated from anything in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, and what I've realized is that, a lot of people who have been in practice for a very long time, this is very much a generalization, but they may not be putting in the same work anymore just because they've been in it for so long and things just like come to them so much quicker. Whereas I have to go and look up a lot of things. I research a lot of things. I look up a lot of case studies. I'm asking different colleagues and I'm putting in a ton of work to each patient. And I'm not saying that other people who've been in the practice for a lot longer aren't doing that. It's just a different level. Because when we're first starting, it's like we really want people to keep coming back to us. We really want people to like us. So we think about all of our patients and clients a lot. And reminding myself that that's a good thing for a lot of people because we do care so much about every single person that walks through our door. Is this something that you've done before?
Never. No, this is a completely new thing to me. And yeah, you
Never
imagine.
heard of her.
Never heard of her. Yeah, I think that there's a blunt statement coming. Hopefully I don't offend anyone. But I feel almost like if you don't have imposter syndrome, at least at some level, you're probably stuck in a fixed mindset.
I was gonna say one of the things I wrote down is that if you have imposter syndrome, it's typically because you do care so much.
Right. And you care about growing, you care about learning, you care about giving your people the best treatment, like you're saying, right? You care about all of that. And I think that, yeah, it's an open-mindedness thing almost, right? I think that Joe Rogan, he's a good example. He talks about how he has imposter syndrome. He's the best podcaster in the world by numbers, right? At least he was. I don't know if he still is, I guess. Not really listening to him, but by numbers, he's the most popular podcaster, gets paid the most, I believe. And he talks about how he feels like an imposter, right? And I'm sure Sally McRae, Nick Bear, all of, those people that are that have big followings, I'm sure they'll talk about. I know Nick Burr has talked about that actually. So, and again, I think it just comes down to kind of accepting that. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good fuel, right? And the difference then becomes when you feel like an imposter, what do you do with that information,
And
right?
how do you
Why are you feeling like an imposter?
and how do you not let it be debilitating for you where it causes
Right,
you to be stagnant?
right,
Like how do you turn that into fuel and growth?
right. And again, it comes back to like you can become afraid and become fixed mindseted, fixed mindset,
Having a fixed mindset.
become having a fixed mindset, whatever what I'm trying to say here, in the sense that you can like go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to become, I don't belong here, right? And I'm going to not try to belong here. And I'm going to listen to like that inner voice that's telling me I don't belong here. Maybe someone else told you you don't belong here, right? Or you can go, why is it that I feel this way? Usually when I ask that question, then there's usually a situation like there's usually some truth to feeling like an imposter, is what I'm trying to say, right? Usually when I'm feeling that way, it's because there was a specific problem I couldn't solve that I couldn't figure out, or someone asked me a question I didn't know, right? And then in my mind, whenever that comes up, it's like these are opportunities for learning now, right? Go find those two things. Go find the answer. Go ask a mentor, right?
Mhm.
But it's not always as easy as that either, you know? And I think that's where like your support system comes into play too, because, you know, depending on your role and situation, like when I first got into this industry, it was so intimidating. I felt like an imposter every minute, you know? And that's where like reps kind of removed out too, depending on what you're trying to do. Running, another good example, right? You go walk into like a Mill City running community and you've never ran before, right? You're going to feel like quite the imposter in that setting. And you have a decision to make of, okay, I'm going to listen to that and not go back, or I'm going to go back and I'm going to understand that everyone else here was an imposter at one point and that I can become like everyone else here. And I can maybe not necessarily like a specific speed or whatever, but like I can get to a point where I can run that much and fit in and whatnot by simply showing up. And again, working on your weaknesses. I think that's kind of how I handle it. And then remembering that like no one's taking you as serious as you're taking yourself. I think that's like the thing that keeps coming up for me lately is just like you were saying, they're coming to us for a reason. So they trust us. They understand that we're, 26, 30, like, yeah, we're probably, I would hope, not as smart as we are going to be at 40, 46. I would hope.
Mhm.
But also that's not necessarily the case either. For us, I hope that we keep that mindset, but
Yeah.
they know that. And then I think people get attracted to though, then the people that have those growth mindsets that are willing to kind of branch out from that and know that like I know that 10 years from now, if they already know this much and they can help me in some way, 10 years from now they'll probably be able to help me even more.
Mhm. Well, both of us, I feel like our patients and clients are so open to, I mean, as we've talked about, we've been doing a lot of classes lately. And we'll say, like, hey, I just learned this thing. Is it cool if we practice this or if I show you some
Mhm.
things? And not once has anybody ever been like, no. And even in school, I would get messages all the time from people being like, you can stick me whenever you want. Like, feel free to practice on me at any time, even though they knew I had just learned how to stick a needle into somebody's body. Like, people want to learn alongside of you. And remembering that you also, I think, putting things into perspective of sometimes it is okay to look back and see, okay, where was I
Mhm.
1 year ago? Where was I 2 years ago? Where was I even a couple months ago before I took these courses? And just remembering how far that you have come. And I think that's a valuable thing for any of us. Just remember the work that you've been putting in. And like you said, just the continuing to show up day after day, putting in those reps and proving to yourself and to others that you do have the ability to grow and to continue learning and that you do belong in this space. And for me, I think a lot of it roots back into like that feeling of like not belonging. I feel like that was a root for me for a very long time. Like I didn't feel like I belonged in any of these spaces, and I just wasn't good enough. And now looking back and being like, wow, I thought that, 10 years ago, and now I've done these things, and just reminding yourself how far you've come. I think it's just hard because these are just things that like constantly just keep coming back. And like I think I was saying that they're always kind of like lingering there for me, but then sometimes it just like is acutely like in your face when things are like, okay, you're a fraud, you shouldn't be here. Like what business do you have having your own business? What business do you have treating an Olympian runner? What business do you have treating this physician and talking to them about anatomy in their body? What business do you have, doing social media and marketing and accounting and always feeling like all eyes are on you? But like you said, at the end of the day, I'm scrutinizing myself way more than anybody else is scrutinizing me. And the people that we surround ourselves with are the people who are cheering us on and want to see us succeed. But at the end of the day, it's always ourselves, I feel like, that tear us apart. And that's when I think you need to turn into the voices that are in your head that are there all the time and think, okay, would I allow, Jacob to be saying these things to me? Would I be allowing my best friend to say these things to me and saying, like, Kayla, you don't have any business doing that? Like, Jacob would never say that to me. My friends would never say that to me. So why am I allowing my head to say that?
Yeah, and I think that you saying that brings up a fairly important point though too of like it is a lot of the stuff that if you're trying to grow, it is scary. And like if you're trying to get into new communities and whatnot, it is very scary. Or start a new career, it is very scary. And I imagine as you get older, it's probably scarier to do that. Maybe I don't know. And I think that like I don't want to diminish the fact of how hard that is either, and understanding that simply put, it's not. Yeah, it's not an easy task. And I think that again, that's just kind of where those reps come into play. And for me, I like to almost think ahead to the future a little bit of, okay, if even a year from now, right? I can be two different versions of myself, right? I can be the version that stuck it out through that course or stuck it out through 40-mile weeks or stuck it out through whatever, or I can just give up. And then what version is that I'm going to be in a year? So I think that a lot of times I think endurance sports and running has given me that mindset of knowing that, okay, if I endure now, I know that it'll be different in a year. Like there is there's a light at the end of this tunnel. I think that remembering those types of things too, and kind of like what you were saying, blocking out external noise. It reminded me of I worked at a shoe store and another run coach was in there, and I was talking with them, and there was a third run coach's business cards that were sitting out on the table. So, run coach talking to me. I'm a run coach. Someone else's run coach business cards are sitting on the table, and that run coach was like, "We should put those cards away. Like, what qualifies this person just by looking at the card?" And I remember I like kind of took that as a hit because they made a comment again about how like that person wasn't like a runner, right? And I like, have always struggled viewing myself as a runner. And I remember thinking like at the time being like, oh, that's kind of harsh and mean. Like I wouldn't just look at someone and go, oh, they're not a runner. Like what qualifies them to coach runners? Like you don't know their story. And in those moments too, when it's not even directed at me per se, right? You go home and you dwell on that for like days. And again, you have a choice to make of, I know this sphere, there will be times where I will feel like an imposter like that. However, and this goes back to the helping people who want our help, right? By sticking it out, it gives other people like you and what you are afraid of and what imposter syndrome you're dealing with hope. Like you become a light to help someone else hopefully get into, again, we're runners and the industry like this talk makes sense for runners, but help someone else get into that, right? And you see it like with the community we're building, right? And I think that we've talked about this a lot, right? Where growing up as someone who wanted to be a runner, for example, like it was very hard to feel like a runner a lot of times. There were definitely times when people made comments and whatnot. Ironically, it was usually the people outside of the run, community. For the most part, run community is pretty inclusive, right? But there's those external pressures and whatnot that get put on you, right? And us stepping and getting through those and continuing to work through those allows more spaces to grow so that other people can work through those as well. Hopefully you followed that. Did that make sense?
Yeah, well, and this reminds me of a situation from yesterday, but the overall arching theme of this is that somebody else looks at you like you are the expert and like you are at the top and that you are this incredible runner or this incredible personal trainer or acupuncturist or nurse.
Like you got it all figured out.
Yeah, you know it all. But I was just thinking about yesterday at our run, and someone there was talking about how, they look at all the other runners and say like, how are you so fast? Like, how are you so good at running? And like all the miles and the speed and the pace. And, this person runs marathons. Like, they're not, I mean, by all means, they're a runner. I mean, they go out and they run. They are a runner. But I don't think that's how they see themselves. But I was just thinking that, like, to their friends and to their community, they're that incredible runner. And just remembering that, when you have the self-doubt, when you're down on yourself, that other people are looking to you and being like, wow, you are incredible. And I wish I was at the spot that you are. And then I wish I could go out and run a mile or a half mile, or I wish I knew anything about the human body. And so that's just another tool that I think helps me. And just remembering that, we all have these people that we look up to. And I think it's important to have mentors and important to have people that inspire us. But again, not letting that be so like detrimental to ourselves, where then we just stop or we don't see how truly incredible we are. Because we all have our own talents. And we don't want everyone to be an incredible acupuncturist. We don't want everyone to be a 5-minute mile runner. And remembering that we all have our strengths, and that's what makes all of us unique and why our world is incredible, because we have people that are good at everything. And we want people who are really good at science. We want people who are good at math, the environment. And remembering that you also don't need to be the absolute best at everything. But we do want you to give your best effort for the situation and the spot that you are at right now. And I think that's the reframe. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not probably as smart as I'm going to be in 50 years, but am I doing my absolute best right now? Am I using all of my education, my experiences, my relationships to be the best version of Kaylee that I can be right now? Because people don't want to wait 50 years for our knowledge. We don't have the time for that. People want us right now. And again, I don't know, there's somebody for everyone. And just remembering that you are incredible just the way you are right now in this instance. In this instant, and tomorrow you will be a new person, and to continue giving yourself the grace to grow every single day.
Keep showing up.
And to keep showing up and putting in the reps.
Yeah, I saw a quote and then we can finish, but it was something along the lines of how the only way to build confidence is having a undeniable stack of evidence on your side, essentially showing that you can do what you say you do. And how do you build that? By a lot of practice and showing up every single day. And that may look different, right? If you're a runner and you get hurt, now how are you going to show up? You can give up, right?
Yeah, I think having a list of I went through a course once and they had us write down all the times that we felt I think it was like all the times you felt like a badass or all the times that, you felt at your best. And just like kind of creating a list of experiences and things that have gotten you to where you are now. And so then when those feelings of self-doubt do creep in, you can be like, okay, I have done all of these things, and that makes me a pretty incredible person. And yeah, there's tons of things I haven't done yet, but that's life. That's how it should be. We don't want to have everything. And one of the reasons why I went into acupuncture was because I knew, okay, there's over 3,000 years of history to this medicine. Why do I expect myself to know it all in 3.5 years of schooling and now being in practice for 2.5, 3 years? Like, that's not possible. But knowing how to find the resources and to be able to ask for help and to stay open and to continue to learn and grow, that's the key. And that's what people want to see. They want to see that you're open to learning and not that I don't want to go to a provider that just is stuck in a fixed mindset and never goes to any like continuing ed, never is looking at the new research, and never wants to grow. Like, I want to see them putting in the work just like I am every day.
Yeah. And being busy versus being productive, I think, is also very true. I see a lot of people who, they spend a year working super hard towards running and they say, I don't get it. I'm doing, this and that and blah, 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 but I'm not getting any better. And then it's like, well, what are you doing? Right? Are you working correctly and hard? Right? Because it's maintenance and then there's working to improve. And it's the same thing with pretty much anything else.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome.
It's hard,
It is hard.
and
It
not
is.
wanting to disappoint others is very hard, especially as two people pleasers.
After we get to do this moment for this week.
My we get to do this moment is from yesterday. We had a group run out at Lake Rebecca, and there were like a dozen more people that showed up, and it was just very cool to be with that many people who wanted to be out on the trails and some people who had never been out on trails before and showed up through the mud and the horse trails. It was a little drizzly, a little gloomy, and it's just very cool to be like, wow, we get to do this with so many cool people in this amazing community. What's yours?
I was not just peeing if you heard water flowing. That was the
It sounded
washing
like a
machine.
stream of water
That was
came
the washing
through.
machine, I swear. On Friday, I had a really cool 8K moment where I showed someone how their adrenals were essentially super, super fatigued. And that was pretty sick. And explaining, like, I had them think about the sun versus running 20 miles and work stress versus, I don't remember what the other comparison was, but basically had them think about different stress and how it affected their muscles. It was really cool. And I was like, yes, got one right.
I love it.
And there's a good example, right? Past like 20, people I've done AK stuff with, I'm like, I don't love how that went. It was like, 60, 70%. And then I go back to like the old method I would use to solve the problem, right? And then I hit one,
Yes.
and then it's just like, again, keep those reps going. So
Mm-hmm.
great episode. What episode number is this?
This was 35.
Wow.
So
65 to go.
Hopefully some of you resonated with our episode today, and if not, I applaud you for never comparing yourself to others or having this. But if you are one of those people, keep things in perspective and try to find those tools to reframe, which are also great skills for running when things get hard. We get to do this.
We get to do this. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for listening.
Wow, Kaylee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
We would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this.